questions, though? Can I ask you to poke the box for me? Thank you. The other two questions we need to deal with. What is this world? Why? Because I may have a sense that I'm that witnessing consciousness, but I come out of meditation, I go into the world, and this world bothers me. People don't behave, people at work are doing it all wrong, the government's doing it wrong, the politics are this, there's fear, there's murder, there's war. And what we see with this second question, the answer is Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all Brahman. It's all consciousness. How does it come about? Third question. By means of sankalpa. The world is not created the way a potter creates a pot. When a potter creates a pot, there's a potter, and then there's a second substance called clay, out of which the potter makes the pot. There's no second substance out of which the infinite manifests the world. God doesn't create the universe at us. In many ways, as us and through us. By means of sankalpa. What's a sankalpa? Wish, will, thought, intention, desire. So, inherent within Brahman is this Maya Shakti. So the infinite with free will imagines the world. Now, let's see if we can get an individual direct experience of kind of what's this like. I frequently will say, you are the God of your dream. So if you close your eyes and imagine an elephant for a moment. Now get rid of the elephant and imagine a pea. Okay, open your eyes. Did you change into an elephant? Did you? No. Did you change into a pea? Did it take more of you to imagine the elephant than the pea? No. But can you find a second substance out of which these imaginations were made? Just the fabric of your mind, which is appearing as these images. Imagination, these are the images. Now, when we dream, if you dream you're riding an elephant, there's a similarity between our imagination, our fancy, and a big difference. Similarity is the elephant of your dream is imagination, just like what you closed your eyes and did. The difference is, to the dreamer, the dream elephant seems real. There's a technical language we use here. First is what we call avarana shakti or a vritti. Varana Shakti means the power availing power. So, what is it, my direct experience? I go to sleep. Going to sleep is the non-apprehension of myself as the waker. Second power, vikshepa shakti. The root is kshipati, which means to like hurl or throw a spear. So the mind goes, and then there's imagination. So, first, the non-apprehension of myself as the waker. I'm sound asleep. Then the mind projects, vikshepa shakti. There's the elephant, and it's a real elephant to the dreamer. I do not see that it's imagination until I wake up. Oh my God, that was such a vivid dream. This elephant was singing crappy Broadway songs in my dream. Oh, and he was so off pitch. I know what your dreams are like. The scripture says, for you and me in a state of ignorance, it's like that dream state. This world for you and me is a very long and very vivid dream. Meaning, Varana Shakti, the non-apprehension of myself as Brahman. Vikshepa Shakti, I see a world of name and form, largely of my own creation. Somebody has to, oh, it's a terrible world. People are getting murdered. I'm so fearful. I got to watch out. You got to be really careful. Someone else? No, I live in a graceful world. It's all God. It's all good. What's the difference? Sankalpa. The habituated flow of thought. Now, what we have is macrocosmic sankalpa, Ishwara's sankalpas. For example, one of Ishwara's sankalpas, light moves at 186,000 miles per second. You can't change that. Microcosmic sankalpa are habituated, unconscious thoughts, these deep sanskaras, these deep vasanas, which manifest as our world. This is the stuff you and I were talking about. You see. So what a yogi understands is, I am that ground of being. There's nothing out there to be afraid of. There's nothing out there but vibration held together by thought. And as individuals, we've got a lot more freedom. World may be a dream, but it doesn't have to be a nightmare. Can I share a little bit about what we talked about before class?
Please, yeah.
Yes. So Hugh was telling me, well, you tell me, what happens when you wake up in the morning?
I sometimes just have a lot of anxiety comes up from just, I guess, dreaming.
Yeah. Anybody else have something like that? No blame. Now, if you get deeply caught up in the anxiety and you start taking this real, it will start out picturing as anxiety producing situations in your life. What am I going to do about this at work? What am I going to do about a relationship? Does that make sense? Do you all understand that? So what I recommended that he do, well, that's just a habit. In spiritual ignorance, I think circumstances create mind states. A yogi understands that mind states create conditions. Swami Tejo Mayananda used to always say, do you know how to get rid of all your worries? Quit worrying. So you can start. What did I recommend? You surrender in the morning. Start. Okay, today, God, I surrender my life to you. You're in charge. I live and I move and I have my being. God-centered universe, whose nature is what? Satchidananda, pure existence, pure consciousness, this absolute. If I see it. Now, we've got a Mahatma, Ramana Maharshi, there in Arunachala, the wild animals would come to him for darshan. And then you've got this 18-year-old kid who goes into a store, supermarket in Buffalo, and shoots 10 people dead. Both are forms of Brahman. What's the difference between the Mahatma and the mass murderer? You tell me.
Ignorance.
Mind states.
Say it again.
Mind states.
Yes. Yes. So, how do we heal the mind? First thing, get out of the mind. Step back, take on the practice of Sakshibhava. I am the witness of my mind states. You can't fix anything unless you're aware of it. I mean, some people would get up in the morning and not even be aware they're anxious. They just turn on loud music, not even knowing why. So when you can see what the mind states are, you got some material to work with. In the early stages of our sadhana, watch your mind. We replace habituated negative sankalpas with positive ones. Eventually, we deal with that very first question, Koham, who am I? Get a sense. Aham Brahmasmi, I am that heartless Brahman. And this world, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. I live, I move, I have my being. God. Then the underlying nature of the mind is transformed, and it becomes the new sankalpa. Things shift, they change because of it. So the idea that Krishna is getting at here is, what is this world and how has it come about? My senses are reporting yesterday's sankalpa. My senses are reporting the sankalpas of groups of people, national group minds, even the whole human race group mind, my local little community. But each one of us has the capacity to free ourselves. And that helps free the world. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Very important part of the teaching. Is this making sense to you?
Yep.
Okay, Deepa, will you, what verse are we on? What shloka?
I don't know. I wasn't here last week.
We're on number 16.
Mark will know.
Yeah, Mark always knows. Just a second.
Which one are we on, Mark?
16.
16. All right. I have 2 copies of the book if people want to use them. Chapter 15, verse 16.
Yep, coming up. Just a second.
You're not even limping. That's great. No.
Dvavimo purusho loke ksharashchakshara eva cha kshara sarvani bhutani kutastho uchyate. 2 purushas are there in this world, the perishable and the imperishable. All beings are the perishable, and the kutastha is called the imperishable.
So Purusha here means a person. So here he's playing with the word. Purusha also means the spirit or ultimate reality, but he says there's 2 Purushas. First Purusha is, I think I'm my body, the hue and the Vinayak and the Amini, etc. That Purusha, perishable. I think the image I used last week is like consciousness is like a great sea of water, and these forms are ice cubes. What happens to all the ice cubes? They melt. But the Uttama Purusha is like the water. It doesn't go anywhere. Really never changes. Now listen carefully. That Uttama Purusha, you and I experience as aham, I. In my ignorant mind, I think I'm my body. Or I think I'm this jiva, this person, this individuality. But if you really analyze it, body is an object of cognition, just like a clay pot. Your thoughts and your feelings, even the ego sense, are objects of cognition. May I talk a bit about what you shared last week about the Vipassana retreat?
Sure.
So he was sharing with me that he had this experience where his sense of self disappeared, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, did his self disappear or did ahankara disappear? If his self had disappeared, who knew it? So consciousness is irrefutable, undeniable. Its personal sense of self is jiva bhavana. Went away. May have come back. But you saw it rise and fall. It cannot be you, cannot be your essential nature. Because you saw it disappear and then maybe come back. And that is this ocean of consciousness. I am Atma Brahma. Great Mahavakyas from the Vedas. This self is Brahman. I'm talking about the individuality. I'm not talking about the ice cube. So the lower Purusha as it is, all form comes and goes. The ice cubes melt. Ishwar's the cosmic ice maker, makes more ice cubes. But the substance, the material cause of it all, is consciousness. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. That comes from Chandogya Upanishad. It's not one of the four great ones that we talk about, four great Mahavakyas, but it's an incredibly important maxim. Sarvam idam, all this, that's code for the phenomenal world. Kalu, verily, Brahman, sarvam kalvidam Brahma. It's a great little mantra to memorize. Another way we can phrase it is right where the trouble seems to be, there God is. Oh, I'm having so much trouble with that person at work. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Right where that situation is, right where that problematic person is. My stupid ego wants to say they're a jerk. My stupid ego wants to say they're gonna hurt me. But what Chandogya says, no. What's really there is God. Satchidananda. All right, next verse.
Uttam Purushastvanya Paramatmetyudahrita Yo Lokatraya Mavishya Bibhartavyaya Ishvara. But distinct is the Supreme Purusha, called the highest self, the indestructible Lord, who pervading the three worlds, waking, dream, and deep sleep, sustains them.
So distinct from the phenomenal world is the Uttama Purusha, the supreme self, the ultimate sense of self. So going back to our visualization, you visualize the elephant. Close your eyes, make your elephant run across your imagination. Did you move in any way? But my elephant moved. I am distinct from the imagination. But the elephant isn't other than me. Let's deal with these words. They're clearer in Sanskrit. So we have chit, chitta, chaitanya. They're all related. Chit is the word we use for absolute consciousness, which is kutusta, immovable like a mountain. Achalam, it never moves. Nirmalam, no taint, no dirt. Nirupam, has no form. Listen carefully. It is always experienced as pure subjectivity. It's me, myself. Then it has the capacity to fork into subject and object. Subject is sentient. Object is always jada, inert. It cannot know itself. I am the knower of it. It is nothing but the self, but it is Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities, names and forms of creation. And the self, Nirguna Brahman, is always distinct from it. I'm always the witness of it all. Now, the practice is this: as you go through your day, good things happen, bad things happen. Stop. See if you can still your mind, introvert the attentive faculty. Notice yourself. See that you are always just pure witnessing consciousness. You don't change. The phenomena changes, but not the noumenon, the knower of it all. Second idea was that he is the Lord of it all. Read it again for me, please, Deepa.
Um, the indestructible Lord who pervading the three worlds.
Okay, that's fine. The indestructible Lord. This Ishwara Baba. This lordship. What is it that enlivens the names and forms, that not only creates them, but gets them to do what they do? That's part of the Maya Shakti of the infinite. Technically speaking, Ishvara comes from the root ichichati, to wish or to will. And it's the total vasana. But consciousness always illumines it on the macrocosm too. But God's in charge. We, in our ignorance, may believe in God, but I think he's an underachiever. He's not living up to his potential. He's a B- God. I need to get in there and fix everything because he's not doing it. Is that really how we go through our lives? Or do we consciously know? Ishvara is the great controller. It's all going to work out. I'm a character in God's drama. Give me my lines, Lord. Let me act my part. And I'm not the director, and I'm not the scriptwriter. So this gives us great peace. It's all going to work out. Be at peace. Be at peace. And the deeper we surrender into this, we intuitively begin to get a sense of what Carl Jung called synchronicity. Who can tell us what synchronicity is?
So what you think happens, like
Louder?
what you think or thought actually like starts to happen, or you get the answer to your question. That sort of
Well,
thing.
that's part of it, but basically what Jung saw, it's when he was studying things like the I Ching. And why does it work? That when something happens here, something else happens there, and they're connected. They're linked. So what the ancients would do, they would see this person is acting such and such a way. I can remember when they were born, the stars were doing that. The stars aren't causing it. It's a synchronous relationship. And this is happening, that's happening. There's a Zen koan. From where you are sitting, move the distant boat across the water. Meaning, same intelligence that's got you sitting here in my living room is moving cars up and down Grand Avenue and spinning galaxies, causing the rain and the drought. The invitation is surrender. Surrender to this Ishvara Bhava, this lordship of the Uttama Purusha of God. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. That's the shorthand. Wake up in the morning. Good morning, God. This is Jim reporting for duty. Question?
So I think this concept of like it's all connected, like what's inside is outside, and everything is kind of happening on top of that almost. I guess the part where I struggle with it is like, suppose you're seeing somebody suffering, right? Does that? I think that's where I lose that because, or that's where it's very difficult for me because then in that moment, it's hard for me to say, oh, everything underneath is Brahman and that suffering is okay. I think I have a hard time with that.
I get that.
Yeah.
Now, you got to be careful about this because if my happiness is dependent on fixing people, we call that codependence. It can be problematic. But I'll tell you what I do. Awareness of suffering is an invitation to prayer. Why has the Lord made me aware of this suffering? Oh, so I at least lessons. I might send a sankalpa. Divine wisdom knows how to heal this person. Now, we got to be very careful not to get manipulative because they may need to go through an experience for their own spiritual learning. But most of the time, you know what people want. People want to be happy. They want to be free. They want to be alone. Always send that sankalpa. Now, true story. There is a Tibetan meditation that's similar to this called Tonglen. Who here has practiced Tonglen? Anybody? Basically, it's a tantric practice that what you do is you breathe in the suffering of someone and you breathe out the antidote. So we can do Tonglen for Deepa. Do we have your permission, Deepa?
Sure.
Okay, so let's breathe in any congestion, any disease, any appearance of COVID. And breathe out health for Deepa. Breathe in any fatigue or tiredness. And breathe out energy and enthusiasm. Very simple tantric practice. If you want more on it, the teacher Pema Chodron has a good essay on how to practice Tonglen. Dalai Lama does Tonglen. Very simple kind of sankalpa. So my feeling is awareness of suffering is an invitation to prayer. Now let me tell you something. This is a prayer that probably won't work. Oh God, please fix Auntie. And if you do, I'll do Lalita Sahasranam every day for a year. I'll tell you why it doesn't work. God's not neurotic. Begging God doesn't change God. God's not my errand boy. Okay, this is what I want you to do, God. No, it's like your housekeeper coming. I want you to polish this and then clean that. No, there's no such God. And making a deal or a bargain. Oh, I love it when you do Lalita Sahasranam. I just get so much juice. There's no such God. Is that making sense? But we as individuals reenact the creative process of the divine in a limited way. So something like Tonglen is a kind of prayer that's probably more efficacious.
And I think on a deeper level, I think it's knowing that it'll somehow be okay.
It will, but you want to do both. So in Tibetan Buddhism, this is a tantric tradition where they do all these yantras and chanting and mantras and blowing of horns and stuff like that, all to focus the mind and sending forth Shakti for the good of the universe. The Vajra, you know, the thing they use, that's for wielding Shakti. But all of those begin and end with the meditation on Shunyata. Fundamental emptiness of all form. Because you've got to make sure you don't get caught up in, I'm unhappy, the other person's suffering is triggering me, and I need to fix them so I'll be okay. Which is where a lot of us are motivated from. Does that make sense, Harmony?
No, that's exactly it. Yeah.
It's subtle stuff to work with this. It's a good question. Good question. I hope that was useful. All right, next verse. Oh, did we finish all the pieces of this one? Read it one more time for me, Deepa.
Sure. But distinct is the Supreme Purusha, called the highest self, the indestructible Lord, who pervading the three worlds, the waking, dream, and deep sleep, sustains them.
Yes. So here, not only is this Uttamam Purusha, the Supreme Lord, the controller of it all, but it is the consciousness in which the three worlds rise and fall. Right now, we're in the waking state. Who's aware of the waking state? I am. Did you have a dream last night? Who was aware of the dream? I was. A lot of people have difficulty with the third one, deep sleep. Many people think they are unconscious in deep sleep. Yoga, Vedanta says, no, you are not unconscious in deep sleep. You are aware of the mind folded up into its avyaktaha, its unmanifest, its seed state. Let's see if I can give you an example. All of you have your eyes open and you can see. Close your eyes. Are you blind or are you seeing darkness, the back of your eyelids? Open your eyes. Your faculty of sight was not altered. What altered was what you were seeing. When your eyelids lowered, your perception of the room was occluded. Isn't that what happened? You were not blind. You were seeing the back of your eyelids, darkness. At night, I can prove it because we do what we call the law of memory. The rememberer and the experiencer must be the same entity. So, Arjun, did you sleep well last night?
Yes.
Okay. Did I sleep well last night? Why not?
Because I did not experience your sleep.
Yes. So the fact you can't say this while you're sleeping. It's only in the morning through memory. Oh, I must have slept so soundly. I didn't wake up. I didn't remember a thing. I'm in the same position as when I went to sleep. I slept so well. So the experiencer has to remember it. You can't remember my sleep because you didn't experience it. So the fact that you can remember it proves you were there to know it. Another example. If you were blind and you were in my living room and I lit a match, you wouldn't see it. But if the lights were turned off and we had blackout curtains and the room was pitch black and I lit a match, you'd see it. Anybody get up last night to go pee? Did you know it? Mm-hmm. If you were unconscious, you wouldn't have known it. Self, illuminating the mind, waking state, dream state, folded up in deep sleep. Watch carefully, samadhi. Oh my gosh, there was nobody there. And the mind returns. So you are the illuminator of the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. Now listen carefully. Oh, Jim, I did ecstasy. What do the kids call it? Molly? Is that the same thing? Yes. You would know this. I had such an experience. Oh, I just felt so connected with everyone. Is that God consciousness? Before you took the drug, you were aware of your ordinary mind, right? When you took the drug, you had an experience. Who knew it? I did. When you came down, who knew the ordinary mind? I did. Who was it who knew all the mind states? That's what's real. That's what's real. All right, next verse.
This is verse 18. Yasmat sharamati toham sharadapi chotamaha atosmi loke vedecha prathita purushottamaha. As I transcend the perishable and I am even higher than the imperishable, I am declared as the Purushottama, the highest Purusha in the world and in the Vedas.
So, Krishna is greater than the phenomenal world. He pervades it all. He's had 3 statements so far. All this is sprung on me like Mani Sutre, like jewels on a thread. Oh, everybody has Krishna inside. And beautiful. Then later he says, well, actually, it's not true. I am not in them. They are in me. Do you incarnate into a dream? Are you in the dream or is the dream in you? Well, it sure feels like I'm in the dream. It feels like I'm in my dream body running around with that damn elephant again. Actually, the dream isn't really in me, it's imagination. He says, behold my divine Maya, the support of it all. So Krishna is the support, pervades the very material cause of this Prakriti, or the lower Purusha, subtle world. He is beyond it all. Echoing what he said earlier, where he said, in one small corner, my infinite being is the entire cosmos. Now, what fools us when I still my mind, look within and introvert my attention, the little old me is Krishna? Well, actually examine yourself. Are you a point of perception? Are you this vast, empty ocean, space life? It's hard to find words because yourself is outside of time and space. It pervades time and space, but it has no dimension. It has no length or breadth or time. So this nitya, this eternal quality, is in another dimension. Yet it's here. It's totally here. It's me. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. Now listen very carefully. The self is not difficult to realize because it's far away, or it's in some altered superconscious state. The self is difficult to realize because of its profound ordinariness. When are you ever not you? So we know things with two kinds of strategies. Most of the things in this world we know through compare and contrast. I know that's a table, and part of knowing it's a table is I know it's not a chair and it's not a lamp. Compare and contrast. The problem with myself is I can't compare and contrast it. I've never had an experience of not I-ing. It is so common, so ordinary, I miss it. Way back in the 60s and 70s, they had these things called samadhi tanks, sensory deprivation tanks. Anybody played with those? You'd be inside and there'd be water inside that was salt water. It was 98.6, so you're kind of floating. And no sound, no sight, no complete deprivation of your senses. You can hear your own heartbeat. Who here can hear their own heartbeats going on right now? But there's so much distraction going on. We miss it. So what we do in meditation is a process of distillation. If I have 3 glasses of water and there's food coloring, red, blue, and yellow, I want to find pure water. I'm back. How long was I gone?
You were
2
gone.
or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Last thing we heard was the color in the water, and then we couldn't hear anything after. In order
Okay,
to
yeah.
the water.
Color in the water. You remove the color in the water and you see the water is clear. So we do with the same thing in meditation. I'm going to remove from my awareness, my attention, everything that's not the subject, I. Example, can you see the phone? Even the people there on the Zoom machine can see the phone. You're not a phone. You're the person looking at the phone. Go to the body. The body is an object of awareness. When I was a child, it was a little body. Changed in adolescence. Now I'm an adult. The body is changed. So Arjun, did you know it when the body got a broken leg? Yeah? And now it's healed. Do you know that it's changed?
Yes.
So you see the change in the body the same way you see the movement of the phone. It's the same with energy. Deepa was saying that she feels fatigued and tired because she's been ill. Do you know the fatigue? Yes. That's prana. Whatever your feelings are, joy, sorrow, anger, boredom. I know the feelings. I'm not the feelings. All the thoughts and all the narratives about who I am. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm smart, I'm uptight, I'm worried, I'm this, all of those. I know all those stories. Drop it, drop it, drop it. Who am I? Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am of the form of this consciousness. Shiva, auspicious. We get nothing new. We just realize what we've always been. Uttama Purusha. Had a student years ago who dropped LSD, was convinced he had a samadhi on the LSD, realized the self, and he kept trying to get back there. He knew the self then, he doesn't know the self now. I kept saying him, so you think you're in ignorance, spiritual ignorance? Yes. Who knows the ignorance? I do. That's yourself. Whatever it is you saw on the acid trip, if it had a beginning and an end, if it had qualities or characteristics, and most importantly, if it was an object of awareness, object of cognition, that isn't it. It's yourself.
Jim, I have a question.
Please.
Well, so you say that the self gets missed because of its profound ordinariness, and the one who is seeing all this is the self,
Yes.
right? So what I don't understand then is why is it that this self is associated with Ananda, like we say Satchit Ananda? Because
Yes.
this self is always there. We have always been aware of it, and it doesn't. I don't see. I mean, maybe the suffering is arising because of false attachment and identification. But
It is a fabulous question. And where it is clearly addressed is in the discussion of the Anandamaya Kosha in Vivekachudamani. But I'll try to summarize it in the last 5 minutes. So, Satchidananda is the nature of yourself, existence, consciousness, and bliss absolute. It never changes. So, what I think bliss is can't be what it is. Because if I'm having a crappy day, I'm not feeling blissful. So what the scripture means by Ananda can't be, So what does it mean? When we start our sadhana, I suggest that we translate Ananda as no sorrow reaches there. Physical pain gets to my body, emotional upset gets to my mind, confusion and doubt gets to my intellect, but nothing gets to me. Well, why do we call it Ananda? And that has to do with the deep understanding of what happens to the mind in the world. Yoga says there is no other suffering than wanting something you don't have. Kama, craving, spriha, longing, vancha, wanting, trishna, that's the one the Buddhists like to use, thirsting. What does it feel like to want it to be different than it is? It sucks. That's my suffering. This is part of this vikshepa shakti of the mind. When I satisfy a desire and object of desire are joined, technical term is called pramoda. Actually, for an instant, that externalizing, that projection of the mind ceases. The mind comes home. But in my ignorance, I do not know that's what it is. This is why meditation is so important. In meditation, if you stay with it, you will have the experience. You're conscious, wide awake, and aware, but you'll find a deep peace coming. That is the mind coming home to the self. We call this Atma Ramana, reveling in the self. So we call the self Ananda. A better translation is the fountainhead, the source, the wellspring of all joy. Because when the mind comes home to the self, we get Brahmananda Rasa. We get the juice of the bliss of Brahman. Now, I can prove to you that the mind freed from its extroversion is blissful. Everybody, without any effort, experiences happiness in deep sleep. In the morning, when you first wake up, you can have what I call snooze alarm bliss. Technical term is vasanananda. Vasana ananda. Alarm goes off, you hit the snooze alarm, you go, oh, I don't want to get up. Oh, this feels so good. You know that feeling? No object is causing that. You're just right on the edge of deep sleep. You're awake enough to consciously enjoy. Then what happens? Oh, I've got 3 clients today. Oh, there's this report due. And, oh, I'm supposed to meet with that customer. And oh, and now what happens? Your mind intrudes, and what happens to the happiness? It's like the morning mist in the sun. It goes away. So we call the self Ananda because it is the fountainhead, the source, the wellspring of all of our joy. In the Sufi tradition, you have an expression, oh, so-and-so has the taste. So we're around a Mahatma. If we tune our minds to them, we see that their mind is just vast and empty. You get their borrowed glory. What's happening? They're stopping our minds. They're stopping the extroversion of our minds. It's not really the guru or the Mahatma, it's yourself. But it's something that happens to the mind. Did that make it clearer, Shweta?
Yes, thank you, Jim.
Excellent question. Do you have a copy of Viveka Chudamani's, Swamiji's translation and commentary?
Yes, I do.
Go look up the section on the 5 koshas, Panchakosha, and reread the section on the Anandamaya kosha with Swamiji's commentary. Now
I'll do that.
that's taken from one of the Upanishads, and I can't remember which one. So Shankara didn't make it up either. The Buddha said the same thing. This is the essence of his Four Noble Truths. Life, the way most of us live it, is dukkha, suffering. What's the cause of suffering? Sangraha, attachment. Kama, craving. Freedom from craving is freedom from suffering. Stop this extroversion of the mind, this wanting. How can I be permanently free from the craving? He calls it the Eightfold Path. We would just call it sadhana. We didn't get very far, but it's important and very subtle stuff in this chapter. It's 8 o'clock, so we need to stop. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
Sorry about our gremlins.